The auction hall of shame. The auction hall was loud. Creatures from every corner of the galaxy filled the seats. They shouted, laughed, and waved their credits in the air. The lights above were hot. The metal stage was cold. And behind the thick bars, alien girls stood, silent, scared, and waiting. They were slaves. One by one, they were dragged forward and sold like animals. Some cried, some screamed. Most had given up. But two girls remained. The auctioneer, a tall alien with slimy green skin and sharp eyes, tapped his staff loudly. "Last two," he yelled. "A package deal." The crowd grew quiet. The first girl stepped forward. She was small, soft-looking, with pale skin and glowing blue eyes. Her long silver hair fell over her face. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She looked, down trembling, hands tightly gripping the bars. "She's broken," someone in the crowd muttered. "Too weak," another said. The second girl was different. She didn't hide. She didn't cry. Her skin was dark red, her eyes burning with fire. She bared her teeth and growled at the crowd, slamming her fists against the bars. "She's wild. She'll kill her owner." The auctioneer laughed nervously. Two extremes, one too soft, one too dangerous, a perfect challenge. No one raised their hand. Minutes passed. The auctioneer shouted, begged, lowered the price. Still, no one bid. The crowd began to laugh. "Just toss them out," someone yelled. "No one wants junk." Suddenly, the doors at the back creaked open. A human walked in. He was tall, quiet, and wore a simple dark jacket. His boots were muddy. His face looked tired. He carried no weapons, no chains. Everyone turned to look. The auctioneer blinked. "You there, human? Interested in a good deal? Look, 2 for the price of 1. The man said nothing. He stepped forward slowly and stopped in front of the cage. He looked at the soft one. Her eyes met his for a second, then dropped. He looked at the wild one. She growled louder, ready to strike, but paused. He didn't flinch. The man turned to the auctioneer. "How much?" The crowd gasped. The auctioneer smiled wide. 10 credits, just 10. The man reached into his coat and tossed a small coin. It landed with a clink. "Sold," the auctioneer shouted, almost shocked. The guards opened the cage door. The soft girl stepped back in fear. The wild one lunged forward, but the human held out his hand calmly. "No chains," he said. The guard frowned. "Sir, they're unstable." "No chains," the human repeated, firm. The wild girl hissed but didn't attack. She looked confused. The soft girl trembled but moved when he gently reached for her hand. The crowd stared, silent now, as the human turned and walked away with the two girls, one holding his sleeve tightly, the other walking behind him with tense eyes. The whispers began. He bought them? Why? Is he mad? But the man didn't care. Outside the hall, the soft girl finally spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why? Did you take us?" The man looked up at the stars. "Because no one else saw what I saw." The wild one tilted her head. "And what did you see, human?" He looked at them, eyes steady. "Not junk, not danger, just 2 lives that needed saving." The soft girl blinked, eyes wet. The wild girl looked away. Her fists were still clenched, but a tiny part of her wanted to believe him. Behind them, the auction hall continued. More cages, more noise. But for these two, everything had just changed. The human's small home stood alone on the edge of the settlement. It wasn't fancy, just a warm shelter made of metal and stone, far from the noise of the central market. Inside, the air smelled of old wood and clean cloth. The floor creaked gently under his boots as he opened the door and stepped inside. Behind him, the 2 alien girls hesitated. The soft one clung to his sleeve like a frightened child, while the wild one stood just outside, her eyes sharp and alert like a trapped animal. She didn't trust him. She didn't trust anyone. But she stepped in anyway. The human didn't speak much. He pointed to the corner where clean bedding was placed on the floor. "You can rest there," he said calmly. The soft girl moved quickly, lowering herself onto the blanket with shaky knees. Her silver hair fell across her face as she wrapped her arms around herself, still scared, still unsure. The wild girl, however, didn't sit. She paced the room like a cornered beast, sniffing, watching, her sharp red eyes following every move he made. He walked into the small kitchen and began preparing something. The smell of warm broth filled the air. He placed 3 bowls on the table. "Eat," he said simply. The soft girl looked up, surprised. No shouting, no orders. Just food. Her hands reached slowly for the bowl and she took a careful sip. Her lips trembled. It was hot, gentle, nothing like the cold slop from the cages. The wild girl, however, didn't move. She stood near the door, arms crossed. "What do you want from us?" she growled. "Why did you buy us?" The man stirred his own bowl. "To give you a chance," she laughed bitterly. "A chance? For what? To be your pet? Your servant?" He shook his head. "To be free." That word hit like a stone. The wild girl stared at him, then scoffed. "Freedom doesn't come for 10 credits. The human didn't answer. He just slid her bowl across the table toward her. She didn't touch it, but her eyes stayed on it, even as she turned her back. Later that night, the human unrolled a small mat and lay on the floor near the fire. He didn't sleep on the bed. He didn't lock the door. He didn't chain them. He just closed his eyes and said, "You're safe here." The soft girl watched him from her corner. No human had ever treated her this way. She felt like crying again, but this time not from fear, but confusion. Why was he being kind? What did he see in them? The wild girl didn't sleep. She stood near the window, one hand gripping a broken spoon she'd taken from the counter, her only weapon. Her eyes never left the man. If he moved, too fast, if he touched them, she'd strike. But he didn't. He just slept. Quiet, steady, breathing like he wasn't afraid of them at all. The soft girl spoke softly, her voice barely a breath. "Do you think he's different?" The wild girl grunted. "They're all the same. But he gave us food, a blanket. Doesn't mean anything." The wild one muttered. But her voice wasn't strong. There was doubt in it now. The next morning, the human was already awake, sweeping the floor. He made breakfast again and placed it on the table. He didn't ask questions, didn't demand thanks. He simply said, "Eat if you're hungry. I'll be outside." Then he left. The soft girl stared at the food. She reached for the bread but stopped. "He didn't take anything from us," the wild girl growled. "Not yet. But what if he really doesn't want anything?" The wild one looked at her, confused. She had never met a human like this. Not one who looked into her eyes like she mattered. Not one who offered food without touching. Not one who left the door open. Outside, the man chopped wood. The sun rose slowly behind him. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing the bite marks still fresh on his arm. Hers. He hadn't even mentioned them. For a long time, the wild girl stood at the door watching him. Her heart beat fast, not from fear, but something else. Something strange. She didn't understand it yet. But she whispered quietly to herself, "Why didn't you fight back?" He didn't hear her. He just kept working, and for the first time in her life, she didn't want to run. The third day began with silence. The kind of silence that wasn't peaceful, but heavy, uncertain. Inside the small house, the soft girl sat on the edge of her blanket, knees pulled to her chest, watching the morning light creep across the wooden floor. Her silver hair was tangled, her eyes tired from broken sleep. Every sound made her flinch. The creak of wood, the chirp of birds, even the breath of the girl beside her. The wild one was awake too. She hadn't slept much either. She hadn't needed to. She didn't trust sleep. Not in a stranger's house, not in a human's home. not even if that human had done nothing wrong. The man moved quietly around them, pouring warm water into a bowl, placing soft towels nearby, offering no words. He pointed to the water, then to them. "You can clean up," he said. "No one. We'll see you. Take your time." The soft girl looked at the bowl like it was magic. Her skin was still dusty from the auction hall. No one had ever given her something like this before. Slowly, she moved forward, dipped her fingers into the warm water, and let out a small gasp. It was clean, safe, kind. Tears filled her eyes as she gently touched her face, wiping away days of dirt and fear. She didn't even notice she was crying, until the human softly handed her a cloth and stepped away without looking. But peace doesn't last long when the heart still remembers pain. The wild girl stood nearby, arms folded, fire in her eyes. "What is this?" she barked. "A trick, a game, clean us up so we look better when you sell us again?" The man turned. "I'm not selling anyone," she hissed. "Liar." She marched toward him. He didn't back away. "I don't believe you," she snapped. "You want something. All humans do." He looked into her eyes, calm. "You think kindness always has a price?" She didn't answer. Her hands shook. "You're free to leave," he said softly. That broke her. She screamed. She didn't want to leave. She didn't want to stay. She didn't know what she wanted. Only that. The storm inside her wouldn't stop. She lunged at him suddenly, biting hard into his shoulder with sharp teeth. Blood came quick. He grunted but didn't hit her. He didn't raise a fist. He just stood there. She pulled back, breathing hard, expecting a slap, a chain, or a curse. But he only looked at her and said, "Are you done?" She froze. His shirt was soaked in blood, but his eyes weren't angry. "Are you done?" he asked again calmly. Her hands trembled. Her heart raced. She didn't understand. He walked to the sink, rinsed the wound, and pressed a cloth against it. The soft girl stood frozen, tears dripping down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but the words weren't hers. She looked to the wild girl. "Why did you do that?" The wild one backed into the corner, confused, afraid, not of him, but of herself. "Because I don't know how to trust." The man didn't speak. He let them sit in silence. After some time, he cooked again, soft bread and warm soup. He placed 2 bowls gently on the floor near them and left his own untouched. The soft girl crawled toward the food, not because she was starving, but because she wanted to understand. She tasted it, looked at him, then at her wild sister. "You hurt him," she whispered, "and he still fed us." "I don't get it," the wild one muttered. "He should have punished me." "But he didn't," the soft girl said, voice cracking. He looked at you like you were more than a wild thing." The fire in the wild girl's eyes dimmed just a little. That night, the human placed 2 fresh blankets beside the fireplace. "It'll be cold tonight," he said. "You can use these." He lay back on the wooden floor, this time farther away, giving them space. The soft girl curled up under her new blanket and held it close. The warmth made her cry again, silently. Not from sadness, but from a feeling she hadn't felt in so long. Comfort. The wild one didn't sleep. She sat beside the window again, spoon still hidden near her side. But this time she looked back at the man more than once. She watched his slow breathing, the way he pulled his jacket tighter as the fire dimmed. Without thinking, she stood, grabbed the extra blanket, and carefully placed it over him. Then she sat back down. She didn't say a word, but inside her, something shifted. The morning sun broke through the clouds gently, spilling golden light into the quiet house. Birds chirped outside the window, and for the first time in a long time, the small home didn't feel tense. It felt calm. The soft girl stirred under her blanket, blinking slowly as the warmth touched her face. Her hand reached out, brushing the smooth floor, and she realized she had slept through the night, without fear, without cold, without someone yelling or hurting her. It was a small thing, but it meant everything. Across the room, the wild girl sat near the door, knees pulled up, head resting on her arms. She hadn't moved much, but her eyes were open, and she wasn't gripping any weapons. She kept glancing at the man who still slept beside the now cold fireplace, wrapped in the blanket she had placed over him the night before. She didn't know why she had done it. Maybe because it had felt right in that strange moment. Maybe because deep down, something inside her had softened. The soft girl sat up, rubbing her eyes. She looked over at her wild sister, then smiled gently. "You covered him last night." The wild girl blinked. "You saw that?" She nodded. "Why?" The red-skinned girl shrugged. "He was cold." The soft one giggled, a quiet, light sound. It surprised both of them. Her hand flew to her mouth. "I'm sorry, I just haven't laughed in I don't know how long." The wild one raised an eyebrow. It sounded strange. The giggle turned into a laugh, and then, after a moment, the wild girl snorted. Just once, but it was enough. They looked at each other, eyes wide, and suddenly the soft girl laughed harder. It wasn't forced. It wasn't fake. It was real, like fresh air after years in the dark. The man stirred. He sat up slowly, rubbing his shoulder and wincing a little from the bite wound. His eyes opened and found the two girls watching him. One looked embarrassed. The other looked confused. And then he smiled. Just a soft smile, warm like the sun. "Sleep, well?" he asked. The soft girl nodded. The wild one didn't speak, but gave a tiny shrug. The man stood, walked over to the kitchen, and began making breakfast again. The same quiet rhythm. Heat, stir, serve. This time, when he placed the bowls, down he added something new. A small fruit between the two bowls. It was bright purple with tiny sparkles on its skin. "What is that?" the wild girl asked, suspicious. The man replied calmly, "Sweet berry. You don't have to eat it. Just thought it might make things better." The soft girl reached first, taking the fruit and holding it with both hands. "It's pretty," she whispered. "I've never seen one before." The wild one narrowed her eyes. "Pretty things usually hide sharp things." The human chuckled. "This one only hides sweetness." The soft girl took a small bite and her eyes lit up. "It's amazing." The wild one raised a brow. "Let me see." She snatched it gently and bit into it herself, ready to hate it. But she blinked in surprise. It was good. Really good. She looked at the man, then quickly looked away. "Okay, that doesn't mean I trust you," she muttered. "I know," he said softly. "Trust takes time." They ate in silence, but it wasn't awkward anymore. The quiet felt different, safe, maybe even comfortable. When breakfast was over, the man handed them both soft brushes and pointed to a small mirror nailed to the wall. "If you want," he said. "You don't have to." The soft girl walked over first, brushing her hair gently. Her silver strands shimmered in the light. She stared at herself for a while, then looked back. "I look normal," she whispered. "You look beautiful," the man said simply. The wild girl snorted. "You're just saying that." He turned to her. "You're beautiful too." She blinked, stunned, then scoffed and threw the brush at his feet. "Flattery doesn't work on me, human." He smiled. "Good. I wasn't flattering you. I was being honest." She didn't know how to answer that, so she turned her back and crossed her arms. But her face, it was slightly red. Later that day, the three of them sat outside. The sky was clear, the breeze soft. The human worked on carving a small wooden animal. The soft girl watched him with interest. The wild one kept her distance, arms still folded, but her eyes kept stealing glances. Then, without warning, the man tossed the wooden carving at her. She caught it barely. "What is this?" she asked. "Looks like you," he teased. "It's got pointy ears," she said, examining it. "And a sharp tail," he added. She gave him a half smile. "Are you calling me a beast?" He shrugged. Maybe. She smiled. A real one. And for the first time, both girls laughed. The calm days couldn't last forever. That morning started like the others, quiet, warm, almost peaceful. The human was outside, fixing the wooden fence around his small home. The soft girl helped by bringing tools with her tiny, careful steps, smiling each time he said thank you. The wild girl sat on the roof, pretending not to care but watching everything like a hawk. It had become normal now, this odd rhythm between them. They still didn't talk much, but their silence was no longer filled with fear. It was the silence of safety, but safety, like trust, was fragile. It started with a sound, a slow rumble from the distant road. The man stopped hammering. The soft girl looked toward the path. Even the wild one froze. The sound grew louder. Boots, wheels, low voices. A transport cart was approaching. And not just any cart. It carried guards, 3 alien males and 1 overseer from the slave market. Their uniforms were dirty. Their eyes were mean. The man stood up straight, calm but alert. The wild girl climbed down fast and stood beside the door, lips tight, fists clenched. The soft girl backed into the house, panic in her eyes. The cart stopped in front of the gate. The overseer stepped down, his voice like poison. "Didn't expect to find you out here, human," he said. "Heard you bought the unsellable girls?" The man didn't answer. The overseer smiled. "We came to take a look, check if you're keeping them properly, or breaking the rules." "There are no rules," the human said. "You sold them. They're not yours anymore." One of the guards stepped forward. "They don't belong with a human." "They don't belong to anyone," the man replied. That was when it happened. The wild girl moved first. She didn't wait for permission. She walked right up to the guards, claws out, her red skin glowing slightly in the sunlight. "You touch him," she growled, "and I'll rip your hands off." The guards laughed at her. One reached out to grab her arm. He never touched her. She spun fast and kicked him straight in the chest. He stumbled back, stunned. The others raised their weapons, and suddenly the soft girl was in front of the man, arms wide, shaking but brave. "Don't hurt him," she cried. "Please, we chose to stay." The human didn't tell them to stop. He didn't step back. He moved forward and placed his hands gently on both girls' shoulders. "She's right," he said. "They're not prisoners. They're under my roof. And if you want to hurt anyone here, you'll have to fight." "Me too." The overseer's eyes narrowed. "You humans are too soft. And maybe you're too cruel," the human said, steady as stone. The guards looked confused now. 2 girls defending 1 man. Not because they were ordered, but because they cared. The wild girl pointed at the path. "You have 5 seconds to leave, or I stop being nice." Her tail flicked with tension. Her claws gleamed. The soft girl, though shaking, held her ground like a wall of trembling courage. The overseer spat. "Freaks," but he waved his hand. "Not worth it," he muttered. "Let's go." The cart rolled away, the guards mumbling. Insults, but not brave enough to face 2 determined girls and 1 fearless human. When they were gone, the wild girl let out a breath she'd been holding. Her muscles relaxed. The soft girl collapsed onto the step, hugging her knees. The man knelt beside them both. "Thank you," he whispered. "You protected us," the soft girl said. Now it was our turn. The wild one didn't speak. She just stared at him, her face unreadable. "You didn't have to," he added. "I know," she said finally. "But I wanted to." Later that evening, they sat by the fire again. No one said much, but the bond between them had changed. It had grown stronger, sharper, like armor that had been tested and didn't break. The human looked at them both, his voice quiet but full. "I'm not going to leave you, not now, not ever." The soft girl blinked slowly, tears forming again, but this time they were warm. The wild girl gave him a nod. "Good," she said, smirking. "Because if you ever try, we'll come looking for you." They all laughed softly. together. Outside, the stars returned, but inside, something brighter was beginning to grow. The next morning, the house felt different. The air was softer, the walls warmer. It was no longer just a shelter. It was beginning to feel like a home. For the first time, the wild girl didn't wake up at the crack of dawn ready to fight. She lay there a little longer, blinking slowly at the ceiling, feeling the soft fabric of her new blanket wrapped around her body. Her sharp senses still worked, but they weren't screaming danger anymore. Only quiet, only peace. And across the room, the soft girl was brushing her silver hair by the window, humming, just barely, just enough to make the morning feel alive. The human had left early, but not in secret. He'd told them where he was going, just to the nearby trading post. To get something, he said with a small smile, for both of you. They didn't ask questions, but their hearts buzzed with strange curiosity. No one had ever gotten anything for them before. They weren't used to being thought of, and yet they waited, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. When the man returned, the sun was high and sweat lined his forehead. He carried a bag slung over his shoulder and something long wrapped in cloth. Both girls rushed to the door, not with fear but excitement. He entered slowly, sat on the floor and opened the bag. "For you," he said to the soft girl, lifting out a folded piece of cloth. It was a dress, light blue with tiny patterns like stars across it. "I saw it and thought of you." The soft girl froze. Her eyes widened. She reached out with both hands, trembling as she touched the fabric. It was soft, real, clean. Her lips quivered. This is for me." He nodded. "You deserve to feel beautiful." Her throat tightened. "I've never worn anything made for me." She clutched the dress to her chest and burst into tears. But these tears were pure. She wasn't crying because she was afraid. She was crying because for the first time someone saw her not as weak, but as precious. Then the man turned to the wild girl. He unwrapped the cloth bundle and revealed a short wooden staff, carefully carved, sanded smooth, strong but light. "For you," he said, "to protect what matters. It's not a weapon for hurting others. It's a tool for guarding peace." The wild girl took it slowly. Her fingers ran along the wood. She wasn't used to gifts. Her people had only taken. Her enemies had only chained. But now she held something, made with care, not to control her but to honor her. She gave a short laugh. "You're giving me a stick?" He smiled. "Only because I couldn't find a proper blade that didn't come with blood." She twirled the staff once, testing its weight. Then she looked up at him, eyes softening. "This will do." The rest of the day passed with quiet joy. The soft girl changed into her new dress and spun in a circle, giggling like a child. The wild girl trained in the field, swinging her staff with power and grace. The human watched both with calm pride, sipping tea by the porch. But as evening came, the girl sat beside him closer than ever. "Why are you doing all this?" the soft girl asked. "You already saved us." He looked at the stars above. Saving someone doesn't end in a day. It's not just about removing chains. It's about helping them see they were never meant to be in chains at all. The wild girl leaned back against the wall. "That sounds like something a fool would say." "Then I guess I'm a proud fool," he replied. She laughed. The soft girl gently placed her head on his shoulder. "I want to stay." The wild one didn't say it, but she didn't need to. Her eyes said it already. The man nodded. "Then this is your home now. Not because I say so, but because you choose it." The wind blew gently. The stars blinked above. And inside that tiny house, once filled with silence and fear, laughter returned, smiles bloomed, and hearts that once only knew pain began to feel full. The dress wasn't just cloth. The staff wasn't just wood. They were symbols of freedom, of trust, of love growing slowly between three broken souls who were no longer broken anymore. The market was loud again. Voices rose over each other, laughing, trading, shouting. Alien buyers strolled between stalls, pointing and choosing goods like they were picking fruit. It was the same place where two alien girls had once stood in a cage, unwanted and humiliated. The same stage, the same cruel auctioneer. But this time, the scene was different. This time, the crowd wasn't laughing at them. They were whispering about them. Heads turned as the human stepped through the center of the market, walking with calm steps. On his left walked a girl in a blue dress, silver hair flowing gently in the breeze. On his right walked a tall, red-skinned girl carrying a wooden staff, strong and proud. No one dared block their path. The auctioneer saw them from his podium and blinked in disbelief. Those are the same two girls? He muttered under his breath. Can't be. Buyers who had once mocked them now stared in silence. Whispers traveled fast. Is that the wild one? She's beautiful now. Look at the soft one. She shines. The human said nothing. He wasn't there to prove a point. He was there for supplies. But the girls walked beside him, not behind, not chained, not afraid. They walked with pride. They walked like they belonged to no one, and still, someone loved them. A young vendor stepped forward nervously and bowed his head. Sir, he said, these fruits are free, for your companions. The human smiled kindly. No need, we pay fair. The soft girl picked a small yellow fruit and handed over a coin. Her hand didn't shake. Her voice didn't crack. Thank you, she said, and smiled. The vendor stared at her like she was royalty. Across the street, another trader pointed. That's the girl who used to bite guards. The wild girl turned slowly. Her red eyes locked with his and her lips curled into a smirk. Still do if they deserve it, she said. The trader quickly looked away. The human, amused, glanced at her. You'll scare them all. She twirled her staff lazily. Good. Let them know I'm not for sale. He laughed softly. You never were? By the time they reached the town center, a small group had followed behind. Curious strangers, old buyers, even a few ex-guards. No one knew what to say. Because deep inside, many of them had seen these girls before. Dirty, broken, and silent. And now, they couldn't recognize them. A noblewoman, rich and dressed in gold, approached and asked, Where did you buy such rare companions? The human looked at her. I didn't buy them. I found them when no one else looked. The woman frowned. You mean, you raised them? I gave them a safe place, he replied. They did the rest themselves. The soft girl stepped forward. We were not raised, she said. We were rescued. The wild girl added, and we made our choice to stay with him. The crowd was silent. Someone whispered, They chose a human? Another asked, But why? The wild girl turned, her voice sharp. Because he saw something in us that no one else did. Soft girl nodded. He saw we were more than weak or dangerous. He saw we were people. The human stood between them quietly, not needing to speak anymore. They had found their voices. A child nearby walked up and looked at the soft girl in awe. You're so pretty, she said. Like a sky fairy. The soft girl knelt down, smiling, and handed her a small purple flower. And you're brave to speak to someone strange. That makes you beautiful too. The child giggled and ran back to her mother. The wild girl watched this with a strange look in her eyes, something soft, something she had never shown before. The human noticed it. Strange feeling, isn't it? He said. What is? Being seen for who you really are. She didn't answer right away. Then she whispered, It's scary and peaceful. He smiled. That means you're healing. By late afternoon, they left the market. The girls didn't look back. They didn't need to. That place had taken everything from them once. But now, it had seen what they'd become. Back at home, the fire crackled. The air was filled with the smell of fresh bread and warm soup. As they sat together, the human raised his cup. To the wild, he said, nodding at her. She lifted hers. To the soft, she said with a grin, and the soft girl lifted hers last. To the human, who saw beauty in what the world threw away. They touched cups and laughter filled the room again, once forgotten, once mocked. Now free, now loved.